At 3 a.m. on December 23rd, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. The sound cut through the silence of my bedroom like a knife. I reached for it instinctively, my heart already knowing something was wrong. Nobody texts at 3 a.m. with good news. It was from my daughter, Ashley. "Mom, I know you've been planning Christmas dinner for weeks, but Richard's mother really wants us at her place this year. Hope you understand." I read those words once, then twice, then a third time, as if reading them again would somehow change their meaning. Each time they hurt more than the last. Each time I felt another piece of my heart crack. I didn't respond immediately. I couldn't. I just sat there in the darkness of my bedroom, the blue light from my phone screen illuminating my face, staring at those words. "Hope you understand." As if understanding made it hurt less, as if understanding made it acceptable. The house was so quiet. That kind of deep, heavy quiet you only get at 3 a.m., when the whole world is asleep and you're left alone with your thoughts. I could hear the refrigerator humming downstairs, the old furnace clicking on, the sound of my own breathing, shallow and painful. I looked around my bedroom, the same bedroom I'd slept in for 30 years, the same bedroom where my husband Tom had held me when Ashley was born, the same bedroom where I'd cried myself to sleep after Tom died 12 years ago. The same bedroom where I'd sat up countless nights worrying about Ashley when she was a teenager, listening for her car to pull into the driveway. And now, at 3 a.m. on December 23rd, in that same bedroom, I felt something inside me break. Not dramatically, not loudly, just a quiet final crack, like ice on a frozen lake that's been holding weight for too long, and finally, inevitably, gives way. You know that moment when you realize you've been invisible in your own daughter's life? That's where I was. At 3 a.m., in my little house in Cedar Falls, Iowa, surrounded by Christmas decorations I'd spent 2 weeks putting up. Alone. Let me tell you about those decorations, because they matter to this story. I'd started decorating on December 1st, like I did every year. I'd pulled all the boxes down from the attic by myself. 12 boxes of ornaments, lights, garlands, and memories. My back ached for 3 days afterward, but I didn't care. Christmas was our holiday, mine and Ashley's. I'd put up the tree in the living room, in front of the big window where it could be seen from the street. It was artificial. I'd bought it 15 years ago when Ashley was in high school, but I decorated it with love. Every ornament had a story. The clay angel Ashley made in 2nd grade. The glass snowflake Tom gave me on our first Christmas together. The little nurse ornament my co-workers had given me when I retired. I'd hung lights along the porch railing, even though it took me 2 hours and my fingers were numb by the end. I'd put my ceramic nativity scene on the mantel, the one my mother had given me when I got married. I'd hung stockings, mine and Ashley's. I'd even hung one for Richard, though he'd never spent Christmas with us. I'd baked cookies. 7 different kinds. Snickerdoodles, chocolate chip, peanut butter blossoms, sugar cookies shaped like stars and trees, gingerbread men, oatmeal raisin, and Mexican wedding cookies. They were all packed in tins, ready to be put out on Christmas Eve. I'd planned the menu down to the last detail. Honey-glazed ham from the butcher downtown, scalloped potatoes with the recipe my grandmother had written on an index card in 1952. Green bean casserole with the French fried onions on top. My famous dinner rolls that Ashley used to eat 4 or 5 of at every holiday meal. Sweet potato casserole with the pecan and brown sugar topping. Cranberry sauce, the real kind, not from a can. And pies. 3 kinds. Apple, pumpkin, and Tom's favorite, chocolate cream. I'd bought Ashley's gifts weeks ago. A cashmere sweater in the sage green that looked beautiful with her eyes. A leather journal because she'd mentioned wanting to start writing down family recipes. A silver bracelet with 3 charms. A heart for love, a star for guidance, and a tiny book for all the stories we'd shared. I'd bought gifts for Richard, too, even though he was harder to shop for. A nice bottle of bourbon, some fancy coffee beans from that expensive place in Chicago. A book about architecture because Ashley had mentioned he was interested in it. Everything was ready. Everything was perfect. I'd been planning this Christmas for months, looking forward to it, counting down the days. And now, at 3 a.m. on December 23rd, it was all meaningless. Hope you understand. My name is Stella Morrison. I'm 62 years old. I worked as a nurse at Cedar Falls Medical Center for 35 years before I retired last year. I've lived in this town my entire life. I was born here, went to school here, got married here, raised my daughter here, buried my husband here. And that early morning in December, sitting in the darkness with my phone in my hand and tears running down my face, I made a decision that would change everything. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. Let me tell you how I got here. Because this story, my story, it isn't just about one text message at 3 a.m. It isn't just about one Christmas. This is about years of small cuts that slowly bled me dry. This is about the death of invisibility and the birth of something I'd forgotten I could be, myself. Let me take you back 5 years, back to when this all started, though I didn't know it then. Back to when I still believed that love was enough, that being a good mother meant always saying yes, that my daughter and I were unbreakable. It was a Saturday in March when Ashley called me, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Mom, I met someone really special. His name is Richard, and I want you to meet him." My heart soared. Ashley had been through such a hard time after her breakup with Daniel. That relationship had ended badly. He'd cheated on her with a co-worker, and she'd been devastated. For 2 years, I'd watched my daughter rebuild herself. She'd thrown herself into her work as a 3rd-grade teacher. She'd taken up yoga. She'd traveled to Ireland with her best friend. She'd learned to be alone, without being lonely. And now, she'd met someone who made her voice light up like that again. "I'd love to meet him, honey," I told her. "Bring him for dinner next Sunday. I'll make pot roast." "Perfect," Ashley said. "He's going to love you, Mom. I know it." I spent that whole week preparing. I cleaned the house from top to bottom. I bought fresh flowers for the table. I made sure I had all the ingredients for my pot roast, the one Ashley had loved since she was a little girl, the one I'd make on special occasions, with the carrots and potatoes cooked until they were soft, and the gravy that Ashley used to sop up with bread. Sunday arrived. I put on my nice blue dress, the one Ashley had helped me pick out for her college graduation. I set the table with my good china, the set my mother had given me when I got married. I lit candles. I wanted everything to be perfect. They arrived at 5 p.m. Ashley came through the door first, glowing in a way I hadn't seen in years. Behind her was Richard. He was tall, over 6 feet, dark hair styled in that way that looks casual but probably costs a fortune at some Chicago salon. He wore khakis and a button-down shirt, expensive leather shoes. When he smiled, his teeth were perfectly white and straight. "Mrs. Morrison," he said, extending his hand. "It's such a pleasure to meet you. Ashley talks about you constantly." His handshake was firm, confident, the handshake of someone who'd spent his whole life knowing he belonged in every room he entered. "Please, call me Stella," I said. Come in. Come in." We sat in the living room first. I served them sweet tea, made fresh that morning with mint from my garden. "This is a lovely home," Richard said, looking around. His eyes took in everything. The worn couch I'd had for 15 years, the family photos on the walls, the bookshelf filled with romance novels and true crime paperbacks. "Thank you. I've lived here for 30 years, raised Ashley here after her father passed." Ashley told me, "I'm so sorry for your loss." There was something in his tone, sympathy, yes, but also a kind of distance, like he was saying the right words but didn't quite know what they meant. I told myself I was being overly sensitive. We talked for a while. Richard told me about his work as a lawyer, corporate law, contracts, mergers and acquisitions. Honestly, half of what he said went over my head. I was a nurse. I understood bodies and medicine, not business deals and legal jargon. But I smiled and nodded, and I watched the way he looked at my daughter. He did seem to love her. His hand found hers naturally. He laughed at her jokes. When she talked, he listened. That mattered to me more than anything else. Then I asked about his family. "Oh, my mother is incredible," Richard said, and his whole face changed. He lit up the way Ashley used to light up when she talked about her father. She's on the board of 3 charities in Chicago. She organizes this huge hospital gala every year that raises over $1 million. She just finished renovating their summer house in Lake Geneva. Did all the design work herself. Summer house. Those words hung in the air. I owned one house. I'd worked for 35 years to pay it off. And Richard's family had a summer house. She sounds accomplished, I said carefully. She is. She can't wait to meet Ashley. Actually, she's planning this welcome dinner next month for Ashley to meet the family. Kind of a big deal. She's inviting aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone. Ashley squeezed his hand. She looked at me with apologetic eyes like she knew what I was thinking. Why hadn't I been invited to plan this dinner? Why was I hearing about it for the first time now? That sounds lovely, I said, because what else could I say? We moved to the dining room for dinner. I brought out the pot roast, and I watched Richard's face. He ate it. He said it was delicious, but there was something about the way he cut his meat, the way he dabbed his mouth with the napkin, that made me feel like he was just being polite. Ashley ate 3 helpings. Mom, this is so good. I've missed your cooking. You can come home for dinner any time, honey. You know that. I know. It's just been so busy with work and everything. After dinner, we had apple pie. I'd made it that morning, the crust from scratch like my mother had taught me. Richard ate 1 slice and complimented it, but he left half of it on his plate. When they left, Ashley hugged me tight at the door. Thank you for tonight, Mom. Richard really liked you. I liked him too, sweetheart. He seems like a good man. He is. I think he might be the one, Mom. Then I'm happy for you. I stood on my porch and watched them drive away in Richard's BMW, a car that probably cost more than I made in 2 years as a nurse, and I felt something I couldn't quite name. Not jealousy, not resentment, just a small worry. A tiny voice in the back of my head that whispered, "Be careful." I should have listened to that voice. I remember the first time they came to dinner at my place. It was a warm Sunday in April. I'd spent 2 days preparing. I made my famous pot roast, the one Ashley loved since she was a little girl. Mashed potatoes with real butter. None of that margarine nonsense. Fresh green beans from Mrs. Henderson's garden next door. She'd brought them over the day before, knowing I was having company. Homemade apple pie cooling on the counter. The kitchen still smelling of cinnamon and nutmeg. I'd set the table with care. My good tablecloth, the ivory one with the embroidered edges that I only used for special occasions. The china my mother had given me. Cloth napkins I'd ironed that morning. Fresh daisies from my garden in a vase in the center of the table. Richard arrived in his BMW, wearing khakis and a polo shirt that probably cost more than my electric bill. He ate politely, cutting his meat into precise pieces, dabbing his mouth with the napkin after every few bites. But I could see it in his eyes. He was just being polite. This wasn't the kind of food he was used to. When I asked about his family, his whole demeanor changed. He sat up straighter. His voice got more animated. "Oh, my mother is incredible," he said, his eyes lighting up. "She's on the board of 3 charities in Chicago. The Art Institute, Northwestern Memorial Hospital, and this literacy foundation she helped start 10 years ago. She organizes the annual hospital gala every year. Last year they raised $1.2 million in a single night. I tried to imagine what $2 million looked like. I'd worked 35 years as a nurse and never made more than $60,000 in a year. She just finished renovating their summer house in Lake Geneva," Richard continued. "Did all the design work herself. Picked out every piece of furniture, every paint color. It was featured in Chicago Home and Garden magazine last month. Summer house. I owned one house, one small 3-bedroom house in Cedar Falls, Iowa, that I'd worked for 35 years to pay off. And Richard's family had a summer house that got featured in magazines. She sounds very accomplished," I said, my voice even. "She is. You'll meet her soon. She's planning a dinner for Ashley to meet the family. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone. She's so excited about it." Ashley smiled, but I saw the nervousness in her eyes. She knew what I was thinking. Why wasn't I part of planning this dinner? Why was I hearing about it secondhand? "That sounds lovely," I said, because what else could I say? After dinner, I brought out the apple pie. I'd made it that morning, the crust from scratch like my mother taught me. The apples sliced thin and tossed with sugar, cinnamon, and just a touch of nutmeg. Richard ate one slice. "This is delicious, Mrs. Morrison," he said, but he left half of it on his plate. Ashley ate 2 pieces. "Mom, this is amazing, just like I remember." When they left, Ashley hugged me at the door. "Thank you for dinner, Mom. Richard really liked you." "I liked him too, honey." But as I watched them drive away in his expensive car, I felt something I couldn't quite name. A small knot of worry in my stomach. A whisper of concern that I pushed aside because I loved my daughter and wanted her to be happy. 6 months later, when Ashley announced their engagement, I cried. Happy tears? I told myself. My baby was getting married. I'd been saving for years, knowing this day would come, eventually. A special savings account I'd started when Ashley was in high school. $15,000, accumulated penny by penny. Extra shifts at the hospital, overtime on holidays, skipping vacations, buying generic brands at the grocery store. Every dollar saved was a dollar I could give my daughter for her wedding. "Mom, you don't have to do that," Ashley said when I told her about the money. We were sitting in her apartment in Chicago, the one she shared with 2 roommates, drinking tea at her little kitchen table. "I want to," I said, taking her hands in mine. "You're my only daughter. I've been saving for this since you were 16. Let me do this for you." "Mom, that's your retirement money. I have other retirement money. This is for you, for your dress, for flowers, for whatever you need." No arguments. She cried then and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "I love you so much, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart." But Richard's mother, Patricia Thornton, had other ideas about the wedding. Ideas that didn't include me at all. I met Patricia Thornton for the first time at the engagement party. Let me paint you a picture of that day, because every detail of it is burned into my memory. It was a Saturday in May. The party was held at the Edgewater Country Club in Chicago, about 2 hours from Cedar Falls. I'd taken the day off work, used one of my precious vacation days, so I could be there. I'd agonized over what to wear. Ashley had told me it was semi-formal, but I didn't really know what that meant in Patricia's world. I settled on a navy blue dress I'd bought at Macy's on sale. Simple, knee-length, with a modest neckline. I wore the pearl necklace Tom had given me for our 20th anniversary, the one I only wore for special occasions. I'd gotten my hair done at Betty's salon downtown, a cut and style that cost me $45 and made me wince when I paid. I drove the 2 hours to Chicago, my hands getting sweaty on the steering wheel as I got closer. I'd been to Chicago before, of course, but never to the north suburbs, never to neighborhoods where the houses looked like something from a movie, with their manicured lawns and circular driveways and gates. The country club was intimidating. Valet parking, a doorman. Inside, everything gleamed. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, fresh flower arrangements that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. I gave my name at the entrance. A young woman in a black dress checked her clipboard and smiled. "Of course, Mrs. Morrison. Right this way." She led me through hallways lined with oil paintings of men in suits. Past club presidents, I assumed. We entered a large room with floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking a perfectly manicured golf course. About 60 people were already there, holding champagne flutes, laughing in small clusters. And there, in the center of it all, was Patricia. She stood like a queen holding court. She was tall, probably 5'9", and slender in that way that comes from having a personal trainer, and probably not eating carbs. Her hair was blonde, cut in a sleek bob that fell just to her shoulders. She wore a cream-colored dress that I later learned was Chanel, though I didn't know that at the time. Diamond earrings caught the light every time she moved her head. Her makeup was flawless, professional. She was 61 years old at the time, I later learned, only a year younger than me. But she looked like she existed in a different world, on a different plane of reality. Ashley saw me first. "Mom!" She came over looking radiant in a pale pink dress. "I'm so glad you made it. Come meet Richard's mother." She took my hand and led me across the room. I was aware, suddenly and acutely, of every eye in the room turning toward us. Or maybe I just felt that way. Maybe nobody was actually looking at me, but I felt exposed, examined, judged. "Patricia," Ashley said, her voice bright but with a nervous edge I recognized. "This is my mother, Stella Morrison." Patricia turned, and for a fraction of a second, so quick I almost missed it, her eyes swept over me, head to toe, taking in my Macy's dress, my department store shoes, my nervous smile. Then her face transformed into warmth, or at least, the appearance of warmth. "Stella!" She stepped forward and air-kissed both my cheeks, her lips not quite touching my face. She smelled expensive, some perfume I didn't recognize, subtle and sophisticated. "How absolutely wonderful to finally meet you. Ashley has told me so much about you. Not, Ashley talks about you all the time. Not, Ashley adores you. Just, Ashley has told me so much about you." Oh, the words were right, but something in the delivery made them feel hollow. "It's lovely to meet you too," I said, my voice coming out smaller than I intended. "Thank you for hosting this beautiful party." "Oh, it's nothing," Patricia said with a wave of her perfectly manicured hand. "Richard is my baby boy. His engagement deserves a proper celebration." She turned to the room. Everyone, let me have your attention, please." The crowd quieted immediately. "I want to thank you all for being here today to celebrate Richard and Ashley's engagement. As most of you know, Richard is my youngest, my baby, and I've been waiting for him to find the right woman for years. And here she is." She put her arm around Ashley's shoulders. "Ashley is absolutely perfect for him. She's intelligent, beautiful, and she'll make a wonderful addition to our family. Our family, not our families, not bringing two families together. Our family, like Ashley was being absorbed into the Thornton clan, and I was just an afterthought. Ashley's mother is here too," Patricia added, almost as if I'd reminded her. "Stella, where are you? There you are. Welcome, welcome." A smattering of polite applause. I smiled and nodded, feeling like a side character in someone else's story. The rest of the party was more of the same. Patricia introduced Ashley to what seemed like 100 people. Richard's aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends, business associates, people from the hospital board, people from the country club. "This is Ashley, Richard's fiancée," she'd say to each person. Never once did she say, "This is Ashley and her mother, Stella." I was invisible in a room full of people. During the party, I stood to the side with a glass of champagne I barely touched. I watched Patricia move through the crowd like she'd been born to it, which, I suppose, she had. She touched arms. She laughed at jokes. She remembered everyone's names and their children's names and asked about their recent vacations or their new jobs or their golf handicaps. I tried to mingle. A few people spoke to me. Polite conversations about the weather, about how excited I must be for the wedding, about how lovely Ashley was. But mostly, I was alone. At one point, a woman about my age approached me. She wore a lavender suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. "You must be Ashley's mother," she said warmly. "Yes, I'm Stella. I'm Margaret Havisham. My husband went to law school with Richard's father. Ashley seems like a lovely girl." "Thank you, she is." "And what do you do, Stella?" "I'm a nurse. Well, retired now as of last year. I worked at Cedar Falls Medical Center for 35 years. "A nurse? How wonderful. We need more nurses. My daughter-in-law is a nurse at Northwestern. It's such important work." For a moment, I felt seen, validated. This woman was treating me like a person, not like an inconvenient appendage to my daughter. But then Patricia swooped in. "Margaret, there you are. I need you to meet the new director of the hospital foundation. Excuse us, Stella." And just like that, I was alone again. When it came time for the engagement toast, Patricia stood at the front of the room with a microphone. She looked radiant, confident, completely in her element. "I want to thank you all for being here," she began. "Robert and I are thrilled to welcome Ashley into our family. From the moment Richard brought her home, we knew she was special. She's intelligent, accomplished, and beautiful. Everything we could have hoped for in a daughter-in-law." I smiled, trying to feel happy. trying to push down the small voice that whispered, "Why didn't she mention me? Why am I not part of this toast?" Patricia continued, "Richard has always made us proud. From the moment he was born, we knew he was destined for great things. And now, watching him build a future with Ashley, we couldn't be happier. To Richard and Ashley. To Richard and Ashley," the crowd echoed. People clinked glasses. I lifted mine automatically, the champagne sloshing slightly because my hand was shaking. Richard took the microphone next. "Thank you all for coming," he said, his arm around Ashley's waist. "I want to thank my parents for always supporting me, for raising me to work hard and aim high. I want to thank my family and friends for being here today. And most of all, I want to thank Ashley for saying yes to spending the rest of her life with me." The crowd applauded. Ashley beamed. Richard kissed her, but he didn't mention me. Not once. I stood in the back of that beautiful room, holding my champagne, wearing my Macy's dress, and I felt myself disappearing, like I was slowly becoming transparent, fading away, until eventually I'd be gone completely, and nobody would even notice. Ashley found me afterward. She hugged me tight. "Thanks for coming, Mom. I know it was a long drive. I wouldn't have missed it for anything, honey. What did you think of Patricia? Isn't she amazing? Amazing. That was one word for it. She seems very accomplished," I said carefully. "She is. She's been helping me plan the wedding already. She has so many great ideas, Mom." Something in my chest tightened. "I'd love to help plan too, you know." "Of course. We'll do it together. All three of us." But I knew, even then, that all three of us would really mean Patricia making decisions and me nodding along, trying not to be in the way. I drove home that night with a headache pounding behind my eyes. The 2-hour drive felt longer somehow. I kept replaying the party in my mind. Patricia's smile that didn't reach her eyes. The way she'd introduced Ashley but barely mentioned me. The toast that included everyone except the woman who'd raised Ashley alone for 12 years after her father died. When I got home, I sat in my car in the driveway for 10 minutes before I could bring myself to go inside. The house was dark and empty and quiet. So quiet. I went inside, took off my nice dress, hung it carefully in the closet, washed off my makeup, put on my nightgown. Then I went into Ashley's old room, the room I'd left exactly as it was when she moved out for college, even though that was 10 years ago now. Her bed with the purple comforter, her desk where she'd done her homework, her bookshelf full of young adult novels and textbooks, her bulletin board still covered with photos of her friends, ticket stubs from movies, dried flowers from her prom corsage. I sat on her bed, and I let myself cry. Not dramatic, loud crying, just quiet tears that rolled down my face while I clutched her old teddy bear. I told myself I was being silly, that I was overreacting, that Patricia was just intense, that's all. That she meant well. That I should be happy my daughter was marrying into a family with money and connections and opportunity. But deep down, in a place I didn't want to acknowledge, I knew that something fundamental had changed. I knew that I was losing my daughter to a woman who had more money, more power, more influence than I would ever have, and I didn't know how to stop it. The wedding planning started the next week, and that's when I really began to understand what I was up against. Ashley called me on a Tuesday evening. "Mom, Patricia wants to take me dress shopping this Saturday in Chicago. Want to come?" "Of course I want to come," I said, trying not to sound as relieved as I felt. At least I was being included. We met at a bridal boutique in downtown Chicago. Not just any bridal boutique. This was the kind of place where you needed an appointment, where they served champagne in crystal flutes, where the dresses started at $5,000. Patricia was already there when I arrived, sitting on a white velvet couch, looking elegant in slim black pants and a cashmere sweater. The boutique owner, a thin woman named Simone with a French accent, was showing her a catalog. "Stella, you made it," Patricia said, standing to give me another one of those air kisses. "We were just looking at some options. Simone has pulled some absolutely stunning pieces for Ashley to try." Ashley came out of the dressing room in the first dress. It was beautiful, strapless, fitted bodice, full skirt, with layers of tulle, but when I looked at her face, I could see she wasn't sure about it. "What do you think, honey?" I asked. Before Ashley could answer, Patricia jumped in. "It's lovely, but I think the neckline is wrong for a church wedding. Too much skin. What about that one, Simone? The one with the lace sleeves?" "Ah, yes," Simone said, already pulling another dress. "This one is more elegant, more sophisticated." Ashley tried on 8 dresses. Every time she came out, every time I started to give my opinion, Patricia was faster. She had thoughts on the neckline, the train, the fabric, the details. She knew all the terminology. A-line versus ball gown, illusion netting, chantilly lace, cathedral versus chapel-length trains. I sat there with my champagne, feeling more and more like a spectator. Finally, Ashley tried on dress number 9. It was beautiful. Fitted lace bodice with long sleeves, a sweetheart neckline, a full tulle skirt that made her look like a princess. When she came out of the dressing room, her eyes were shining. "This is it," she whispered. "This is the one. You look absolutely stunning," I said, my eyes filling with tears. "Like a dream." Patricia tilted her head, studying Ashley critically. "It's lovely, but that lace, is it ivory or white? Because ivory might photograph oddly in the church lighting." "It's ivory, madame," Simone said. What do you think, Ashley? Do you want to try the white version?" I like the ivory," Ashley said, but her voice was uncertain now. Of course. It's your choice. I just want you to have the perfect dress." Patricia smiled. "But we should probably check a few more boutiques before we decide. Right, Stella?" She was asking me, but it wasn't really a question. It was a test. Would I support my daughter's choice? Or would I agree with Patricia's suggestion to keep looking? I looked at Ashley's face, the uncertainty, the desire to please everyone. "If Ashley loves this dress," I said carefully, "then I think it's perfect." A flicker of something crossed Patricia's face. Annoyance, maybe. Or surprise that I'd contradicted her. "Well," she said, "let's at least sleep on it. Ashley, darling, you don't want to make such an important decision impulsively." Ashley bit her lip. "Maybe you're right. I'll think about it." We left the boutique without ordering a dress. On the drive home, I called Ashley. "Honey, did you really want to think about that dress? Or did you just not want to disagree with Patricia?" There was a long pause. "Mom, it's complicated. Patricia has such good taste, and she knows about these things. I just want everything to be perfect." "But it's your wedding, sweetheart." I know. I'll figure it out." But she didn't figure it out. A week later, Ashley called to tell me she'd ordered the dress from a different boutique, a dress Patricia had found, a dress that cost $7,000. I offered to pay for it with my savings, like I'd promised. "That's so generous, Mom. But Patricia already took care of it. She said it was her gift to me." Her gift? Of course. The wedding planning continued like that. Every decision, big or small, somehow became Patricia's domain. The venue. Patricia knew the event coordinator at the Chicago Four Seasons. She could get us a discount. Plus, the ballroom was so much more elegant than anywhere in Cedar Falls. The flowers? Patricia's personal florist could do white orchids imported from Thailand, much more sophisticated than local roses. The menu? Patricia had the chef from her country club create a custom tasting menu. 5 courses, wine pairings, much better than a standard wedding buffet. The guest list? Well, Richard's family had so many people. Aunts, uncles, cousins, business partners, family friends. We'd need space for at least 200 people. How many people did I want to invite? "I was thinking maybe 30, I said hesitantly. My family was small. My sister Margaret, a few cousins, my friends from work, my neighbors. "Perfect," Patricia said. 230 people total. What a nice size. The invitations? Patricia knew a stationer who did custom letterpress, much more formal than printed invitations. And on and on and on. Every phone call with Ashley became shorter. Every conversation started with, "Patricia thinks," or "Patricia suggested," or "Patricia already arranged." I tried to be involved. I really did. I offered to help with centerpieces. Patricia had already hired a designer. I offered to make the favors. Patricia had ordered custom boxes of imported chocolates. I offered to host a bridal shower. Patricia was planning one at her country club. "Mom, you could host a shower too," Ashley said when I brought it up. "Like a separate one, for your friends and family. A separate one. A smaller, less important one." "Sure, honey," I said. "That sounds nice." I hosted a bridal shower at my house in Cedar Falls for 25 people. My friends from work, my neighbors, my sister Margaret, a few of Ashley's old teachers from her elementary school. We played games, ate cake, laughed. Ashley seemed genuinely happy, relaxed in a way she hadn't been in months. "This is so nice, Mom," she said, hugging me. "So much less formal than Patricia's shower. I can just relax here? Less formal. Translation. Less elegant. Less sophisticated. Less important." 2 weeks later, Patricia's bridal shower at the country club had 75 guests. Professional photographer, catered lunch, string quartet, gifts that filled an entire room, designer kitchen appliances, expensive china, crystal, artwork. I went to that shower. I brought my gift, a handmade quilt I'd spent 3 months sewing, each square carefully chosen, representing different parts of Ashley's life, her childhood, her school years, her journey to becoming a teacher. When Ashley opened it, she cried, "Mom, this is beautiful. This must have taken forever." 3 months, I said, "but it was worth it." Patricia looked at the quilt. "How quaint," she said. "Homemade. How sweet, Stella." Quaint. Homemade. Sweet. Like my love was a charming but ultimately inferior gesture compared to the crystal and china surrounding it. The wedding was beautiful. I'll give Patricia that. Held at a luxury hotel in downtown Chicago. 300 guests, a string quartet, and a 5-tier cake that looked like something from a magazine. I paid for Ashley's dress. $4,000 for silk and lace and dreams. I didn't mind. She looked like an angel. But when Richard gave his speech, thanking everyone, he mentioned his parents 3 times. He thanked Patricia for planning the perfect wedding. He didn't mention me once. Ashley noticed. I saw her face fall, saw her glance at me apologetically. But she didn't say anything. She never said anything. After the wedding, things got worse. Ashley and Richard moved into a house in Naperville, a Chicago suburb about 30 miles from Patricia's mansion in Hinsdale, and 150 miles from me. "Mom, you should come visit," Ashley would say on our weekly phone calls, and I did. Every month I'd drive those 3 hours, bringing homemade cookies or a casserole, something to help my daughter who was working full-time as a teacher while Richard built his law career. But every time I visited, Patricia was there too. She'd be sitting in my daughter's living room like she owned it, drinking tea from china cups she'd given them as a wedding gift. "Stella, you didn't have to drive all this way," Patricia would say, as if my presence was an inconvenience, rather than a mother wanting to see her daughter. The first Thanksgiving after their wedding, Ashley invited me to their house. I was so excited. I spent 2 days preparing my sweet potato casserole, my cornbread stuffing, my pecan pie, all the recipes that had been in our family for generations. I arrived at 1 p.m., as Ashley had asked, but when I walked in, the house was full. Patricia was there with Richard's father, Robert, Richard's sister, Caroline, with her husband and 2 kids, Richard's aunt and uncle, 12 people total. And my dishes, they were pushed to the side of the table, overshadowed by Patricia's catered feast from some fancy Chicago restaurant. "Oh, Stella, you brought food," Patricia said, looking at my containers like I'd brought in something from a gas station. "How sweet. We'll find room for it somewhere." We didn't eat until 4 p.m. By then, I'd been standing in the corner for 3 hours, watching Patricia hold court, watching her hug my daughter, watching her play with the grandchildren she kept saying she couldn't wait to have. When we finally sat down, I was placed at the far end of the table. Patricia sat next to Ashley. During the meal, Patricia announced, "Next year, why don't you all come to our house? I have so much more space, and I can hire proper caterers." Ashley looked at me nervously. "Mom, would that be okay?" What was I supposed to say? "No, I want my daughter on Thanksgiving No, I've been doing this holiday alone since your father died, and I need this. Sure, honey, I said. Whatever works. But inside, something broke. The next year, Thanksgiving at Patricia's mansion was exactly what I feared. I was invited technically, but I was treated like a distant relative, not the mother of the bride. I sat at a table with people I didn't know. Ashley spent the whole day in the kitchen with Patricia, learning how to make her cranberry sauce, her special stuffing. When I left that night, Ashley walked me to my car. "Thanks for coming, Mom. I love you, sweetheart," I said. "I love you too." But I drove home crying because I realized I was losing my daughter to a woman who had more money, more influence, and more time. The breaking point started building last summer. Ashley called me in June, unusually excited. "Mom, Richard got a huge promotion. He's making partner at his firm." "That's wonderful, honey. We're celebrating this weekend. Just family. Can you come?" Family. Finally, she was including me as family. I drove up on Saturday, brought a nice bottle of wine I'd been saving, wore my best dress. When I arrived at their house, there were cars everywhere. I walked in to find 40 people. Richard's colleagues, his family, friends. Patricia was there in a designer dress, playing hostess in my daughter's home. "Oh, Stella," Patricia said when she saw me. "I didn't realize Ashley had invited you. How nice." Didn't realize. As if I was a surprise guest at my own daughter's celebration. I stayed for 2 hours. Nobody talked to me. Ashley was so busy playing hostess alongside Patricia that we barely exchanged 10 words. I left without saying goodbye. I don't think anyone noticed. That was June. By October, I'd noticed the pattern. Every holiday, every celebration, every important moment, Patricia was there, front and center, and I was pushed further and further to the edges. Phone calls with Ashley became shorter. "Mom, I've got to go. Patricia and I are going shopping." "Mom, can I call you back? We're having dinner at Patricia's." "Mom, I'm so tired. Can we talk next week?" Next week became next month. Next month became when I had time. I started wondering if I'd done something wrong. Had I been a bad mother? Had I failed somehow? I'd raised Ashley alone after my husband died when she was 12. I'd worked double shifts to pay for her college. I'd been there for every play, every graduation, every heartbreak. But now, it was like none of that mattered. In November, Ashley called with news. "Mom, I'm pregnant." My heart soared. "Oh, honey, that's incredible. I'm due in June. We just found out last week." Last week. She'd known for a week and was just telling me now. "We told Patricia right away because she was so excited about being a grandmother," Ashley continued. "She's already talking about setting up a nursery at her house." At her house? Not at Ashley's house. At Patricia's. "That's great, honey," I said, my voice hollow. "We'll have to get together soon so we can talk about everything. Patricia has so many ideas." Of course she did. I didn't hear from Ashley for 2 weeks after that. When she finally called, it was to tell me that Patricia was throwing her a baby shower in December. "December?" I asked. "But you're only 3 months along." "Patricia wants to do it before the holidays get too crazy. She's inviting all the women from Richard's family and some of her friends. It's going to be at the country club." "Can I help plan it?" I asked carefully. There was a pause. "Patricia's already got it handled, Mom. But you're invited, of course. Invited to my own daughter's baby shower. Like a guest, not like the grandmother." The shower was exactly what I expected. Elegant, expensive, and completely controlled by Patricia. She'd registered Ashley at stores I couldn't afford. She'd planned games I didn't understand. She'd invited 50 women I didn't know. When it came time to open gifts, Patricia sat next to Ashley, oohing and ahhing over every outfit, every toy. My gift, a handmade quilt I'd spent 3 months working on, each square sewn with love, was opened and set aside quickly. "Oh, how sweet, Stella," Patricia said. "Handmade. How quaint." Quaint. Like my love was a cute but outdated gesture. I left that shower feeling smaller than I'd ever felt in my life. December arrived with its usual chaos of holiday preparations and mounting expectations. The air in Cedar Falls turned crisp and cold. The shops downtown put up their decorations, strings of colored lights, wreaths on every door, artificial snow in the windows. The Salvation Army bell ringers appeared on corners. Christmas music played everywhere. And I started planning Christmas like I did every year. But this time, with a desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, this would be the year things went back to normal. I started decorating on December 1st, the day after Thanksgiving. I'd spent Thanksgiving at Patricia's mansion, a 10-hour affair that left me exhausted and feeling more invisible than ever. But I told myself Christmas would be different. Christmas was our holiday, mine and Ashley's, our tradition. I pulled all the boxes down from the attic by myself. 12 boxes of decorations, accumulated over 30 years. My back ached for 3 days afterward, but I didn't care. This was important. This mattered. I put up the tree on December 2nd. It took me 4 hours. The artificial tree was 15 years old, and some of the branches were bent, but I shaped it as best I could. I strung the lights, testing each strand first because inevitably 1 or 2 wouldn't work. I hung the ornaments, each one a memory. The clay angel Ashley made in 2nd grade, her little fingerprints still visible in the clay. The glass snowflake Tom gave me our first Christmas together. The wooden nutcracker we'd bought in Germany when we took our one international trip years ago. I hung lights along the porch railing on December 3rd. My fingers were numb by the time I finished, and I nearly fell off the ladder twice, but I persisted. Mrs. Henderson next door came out to watch. "Stella, you should have called my grandson to help you with that," she called. "I'm fine, Eleanor," I said, though my hands were shaking on the ladder. "I've been doing this for 30 years. Well, it looks beautiful." I stepped back to look at my handiwork. The lights weren't perfectly straight. They dipped a little in the middle, but they glowed warm and bright in the darkening afternoon. I put my ceramic nativity scene on the mantel on December 4th, each piece wrapped carefully in newspaper. Mary, Joseph, baby Jesus, the 3 wise men, the shepherds, the sheep, the set my mother had given me when I got married. That had sat on her mantel before that. That had been in our family for 3 generations. I hung stockings, mine and Ashley's. Hers was the one I'd made when she was 3, with her name stitched in crooked letters because I wasn't very good at embroidery. I added one for Richard, even though he'd never spent Christmas with us, a simple red stocking from Target. But it felt important to include him, to show I was trying to welcome him into our family. I baked cookies over the course of a week. Monday, snickerdoodles. Tuesday, chocolate chip. Wednesday, peanut butter blossoms with Hershey's Kisses pressed in the center. Thursday, sugar cookies that I cut into stars and trees and bells that I frosted with white icing and red sprinkles. Friday, gingerbread men with raisin eyes and frosting buttons. Saturday, oatmeal raisin, Tom's favorite, even though he'd been gone for 12 years. Sunday, Mexican wedding cookies, rolled in powdered sugar. I packed them all in tins, the same tins I used every year, metal ones with Christmas scenes on the lids. I labeled each one carefully. I imagined Ashley's face when she saw them all lined up on the counter. She used to love helping me bake when she was little. She'd stand on a stool next to me, wearing a too-big apron, carefully dropping spoonfuls of dough onto baking sheets. I planned the menu with obsessive detail. I wrote it out on a piece of paper that I kept on my refrigerator, adding and revising. Christmas dinner menu. Honey-glazed ham from Miller's Butcher Shop. Order by Deck 20th. Scalloped potatoes, Grandma Ruth's recipe. Green bean casserole with French fried onions. Homemade dinner rolls. Make dough Deck 24th morning. Sweet potato casserole with pecan topping. Cranberry sauce. The real kind, not canned. Corn pudding, Ashley's favorite. Pies. Apple, pumpkin, chocolate cream, I added. Notes to myself. Remember to start thawing the ham on Deck 22nd. Buy fresh green beans. Make sure to have extra butter. I bought Ashley's gifts weeks ago. I'd wrap them carefully and put them under the tree. The cashmere sweater in sage green. The leather journal. The silver bracelet with 3 charms. I bought gifts for Richard, too, even though part of me resented having to do it. A nice bottle of bourbon. I'd asked the liquor store owner which brand lawyers in Chicago might like. Fancy coffee beans from that expensive shop. A book about architectural history. I even bought a gift for Patricia, a candle from a boutique shop, expensive, something called Winter Forest, that the saleswoman assured me was sophisticated and tasteful. Everything was ready. Everything was perfect. I'd been planning this Christmas for months, looking forward to it, counting down the days. On December 10th, I called Ashley to confirm. My hands were actually shaking as I dialed her number. She answered on the fourth ring. "Hey, Mom." Her voice sounded distracted. "Hi, honey. I just wanted to confirm you're coming for Christmas. I'm finalizing the menu, and I want to make sure I have everything you like." There was a pause that lasted just a beat too long. "Actually, Mom, I need to talk to you about that." My stomach dropped. The kitchen suddenly felt very cold. "Okay," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Richard's family has this tradition," Ashley began, her words coming out in a rush like she'd rehearsed them. "Every Christmas, they go to Patricia's house. It's this whole big thing with all the cousins and aunts and uncles, like 30 people. It's really important to them. But we have traditions too," I said quietly. "You and me, we've had Christmas together every year of your life except the 4 years you were away at college." "I know, Mom. I know. But this is really important to Richard. It's his family tradition. And now that we're married, it's my family tradition too. And I'm not your family. That's not what I mean." She sounded frustrated now, defensive. "You're my family. Of course you are. But I have to consider Richard's family too." "What do you think, Ashley?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Forget what Richard wants. Forget what Patricia wants. What do you want?" Silence. Long, heavy silence. "I think," she started, then stopped. "I think we should probably go to Patricia's this year. This year. Like it was just this once. But I knew in that moment that this wouldn't be just this year. This would be every year. This was the new normal. What about me?" The words came out smaller than I intended, like a child asking not to be left behind. "You could come with us," Ashley offered. But even she didn't sound convinced. "To Patricia's house? Where I'll sit in a corner while you celebrate with her family? Where I'll be the awkward guest who doesn't fit in?" "Mom, don't be dramatic." Dramatic? That word felt like a slap across my face. Dramatic. Like my feelings were an overreaction. Like wanting to spend Christmas with my only daughter was asking too much. "You know what?" I said. "You do what you need to do. Have a Merry Christmas." I hung up before she could answer. I cried for 3 hours. But then, sitting in my living room surrounded by decorations, meant for a celebration that wouldn't happen. I made a decision. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to shrink myself anymore. I was done being invisible. I spent the next week preparing, not for Christmas dinner, for something else entirely. On December 20th, I called my sister Margaret in Phoenix. "Hey, Marg, what are you doing for Christmas?" "Nothing much," she said. "Tom's kids are with their mother this year. It's just going to be us. Would you mind if I came to visit?" There was a pause. "Stella, what's going on?" And I told her everything. The years of being pushed aside, the feeling of invisibility, the realization that I'd been sacrificing my dignity for crumbs of my daughter's attention. "Come," Margaret said immediately. "Stay as long as you want." I booked a flight for December 23rd. One way. Then I did something I'd never done before. I started thinking about myself. I'd spent 35 years as a nurse, retiring just last year. I'd spent my entire adult life taking care of others. My patients, my husband before he died, my daughter. I'd saved money not for myself but for Ashley's future. But what about my future? I had $40,000 in savings. Money I'd been holding on to, thinking maybe I'd help Ashley and Richard with a down payment on a bigger house someday. Money I'd saved by working overtime, by skipping vacations, by denying myself nice things. On December 21st, I made some decisions. I called a realtor. "I want to sell my house." "In December?" she asked, surprised. "Yes. I want it done quickly. I'm willing to price it competitively." My house was small but well-maintained, in a decent neighborhood. She estimated I could get $180,000 for it. "Can we close by the end of January?" I asked. "If we find the right buyer and they pay cash, maybe." Do it. Next, I called a travel agent. I want to book an extended trip, starting December 23rd. I want to go to Phoenix first, then maybe Santa Fe, maybe California. I want to see the country. How long? 3 months, maybe 6. I'll let you know. I spent December 22nd packing my important belongings, photo albums, my mother's jewelry, documents. Everything else could be sold with the house or donated. That night, Ashley called. Mom, I just wanted to say Merry Christmas. I'm sorry you'll be alone, but maybe we can see you right after. Patricia's doing this whole thing on Christmas Day, but maybe the 26th. Actually, honey, I won't be alone. Oh, is Aunt Margaret coming to visit? No, I'm going to visit her. In Phoenix. What? When? Tomorrow. I'm flying out in the afternoon. Tomorrow? But that's Christmas Eve. I know what day it is, Ashley. Mom, you can't just leave. What about our traditions? Ashley, you made it very clear that your traditions are now with Patricia and Richard's family. That's not fair, isn't it? Tell me, when was the last time you chose me over Patricia? Silence. I love you, I continued. I'll always love you. But I'm done making myself small so I can fit into the tiny space you've left for me in your life. Mom, I don't understand. Where's this coming from? It's been coming for 5 years, Ashley. You just haven't been paying attention, so you're just going to run away? No, I'm going to finally live my life. I'm 62 years old. I've spent 40 years taking care of everyone else. Maybe it's time I take care of myself. What about the house? I'm selling it. You're selling the house? Her voice went up an octave. Where are you going to live? I don't know yet. Maybe Phoenix. Maybe somewhere else. I'll figure it out. Mom, this is crazy. You're having some kind of breakdown. No, sweetheart. I'm having a breakthrough. Richard and I need to talk to you. Can we come over? There's nothing to talk about. I've made my decision. At least wait until after Christmas. We can all sit down and... Ashley, I waited 5 years. I'm done waiting. She was crying now. Mom, please. I have to go pack. Have a Merry Christmas, honey. Give Richard my best. I hung up. At 3 a.m., that's when she sent the text. The one I told you about at the beginning. The one where she finally admitted that Patricia didn't want me at Christmas. That she'd been trying to manage the situation. That she thought it would be easier to just go along with what Patricia wanted. But by then it didn't matter. Because by then, I'd already packed my bags. On December 23rd, I loaded my car with suitcases. I took one last walk through my house, looking at the Christmas decorations I'd put up with so much hope. I thought about taking them down, but then I decided to leave them up, let the next owners enjoy them. My flight was at 3 p.m. I got to the airport at noon, returned my rental car, checked my bags. As I sat at the gate, my phone rang. Ashley. I didn't answer. She called 5 more times. I let them all go to voicemail. Finally, I listened to one. Mom, please. Richard and I are on our way to your house. We need to talk to you. This is insane. You can't just sell the house and move across the country. What about the baby? Don't you want to be part of your grandchild's life? Mom, please call me back. I texted back. Ashley, I will always be your mother, and I will love that baby more than anything. But I won't be a part-time grandmother who only gets included when it's convenient for everyone else. I'm not running away from you. I'm running toward myself. When you're ready to have a real relationship with me, one where I'm not invisible, call me. I love you. I boarded the plane. Phoenix was warm and bright when I landed. Margaret was waiting for me at baggage claim, her arms open. I collapsed into her hug and cried. You did the right thing, she whispered. Then why does it hurt so much? Because it's supposed to. But you'll be okay, I promise. Christmas Eve at Margaret's house was quiet. Just her husband Tom, and me. We ordered Chinese food, watched old movies, and didn't talk about Ashley. On Christmas morning, I woke up to dozens of texts from Ashley. Angry ones at first. I can't believe you're doing this. You're being selfish. Patricia was right about you. That last one stung. Patricia was right about me. What had Patricia said about me? But then later in the day, the texts changed. Mom, I'm sorry. I think I understand. Richard and I had a long talk. I miss you. I didn't respond. Not yet. I spent Christmas Day hiking in the desert with Margaret. The sky was impossibly blue, the air was crisp, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. "What are you going to do?" Margaret asked as we sat on a red rock overlooking a valley. "I don't know. Maybe stay here for a while. Maybe travel. Maybe reinvent myself completely. What about Ashley? I love my daughter, but she has to decide if she wants a mother, or if she just wants someone to fill a role when it's convenient." Margaret nodded. "You know, I always thought you were too soft with her." "I was a mother? I was supposed to be soft." "There's a difference between being loving and being a doormat." I looked at her. "When did I become a doormat?" "When you started apologizing for existing." Those words hit me hard, because she was right. I had been apologizing for existing, for wanting to see my daughter, for wanting to be included, for wanting to matter. The week between Christmas and New Year's was transformative. I hiked every day. I read books I'd been meaning to read for years. I started a journal. I even took a painting class at a local community center. And I didn't answer Ashley's calls. On December 30th, she showed up. Margaret came into my room. "Stella, someone's here for you." I walked into the living room and there was Ashley, her belly just starting to show, her eyes red from crying. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, honey." We stood there for a moment, just looking at each other. "Can we talk?" she asked. We sat on Margaret's patio, just the two of us. "I'm sorry," Ashley started. "I'm so sorry." "For what specifically?" She took a deep breath. "For making you feel invisible. For choosing Patricia over you. Again and again. For not standing up for you. For letting Richard's family become more important than you. For everything." I stayed quiet. "I didn't realize what I was doing," she continued. "I thought I was just keeping the peace. Patricia can be intense. And it was easier to just go along with what she wanted than to create conflict." "Easier for who?" "For me," she admitted. "It was easier for me. I didn't want to deal with Patricia being upset or Richard being caught in the middle, so I sacrificed you instead, because I knew you'd forgive me, because you always did." "Until I didn't," she nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Mom, I was wrong. I was so wrong. Richard and I have been talking a lot since you left. He helped me see what I was doing." "Richard?" "Yeah. After you left, he sat me down and said, 'Ashley, your mother just sold her house and left the state because of how we've treated her. Does that tell you something?' And it did. It told me everything." I felt something shift in my chest. "Patricia called on Christmas morning," Ashley continued. "She wanted to know where you were. I told her you'd gone to Arizona. She said, 'Well, that's dramatic.' And Richard said, 'No, Mom. That's what happens when you push someone out of their own family.' He said that to her. He did, and it caused a huge fight. Patricia said he was being disrespectful. Richard said she was being controlling. It was ugly, but necessary." Ashley reached for my hand. I let her take it. "I don't want Patricia to be more important than you," she said. "I don't want my child to grow up barely knowing their grandmother, because I was too weak to set boundaries. I want you in our lives, Mom. Really in our lives. Not on the sidelines. That's going to mean making Patricia uncomfortable sometimes," I said gently. "I know, and I'm ready to do that. Richard and I talked, and we're setting some boundaries, starting with holidays. Next year, we're alternating. Christmas with you, Thanksgiving with them, or whatever you want, but you come first." I looked at my daughter, this woman I'd raised, and I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Clarity. "Ashley, I need you to understand something," I said. "I didn't leave because I wanted you to chase me. I left because I needed to find myself again. For 5 years, I made myself smaller and smaller, trying to fit into whatever space you left for me. And I can't do that anymore. I know. I'm going to stay in Arizona for a while. Maybe longer. I'm selling the house in Cedar Falls. I'm starting over." Her face fell. "You're not coming back?" "I don't know yet. But what I do know is that I spent my whole life in Cedar Falls. I was born there. I raised you there. I worked there. And now I want to see what else is out there. What about the baby? I will be there for that baby. I promise. But I will also have my own life. I won't just be grandma, sitting around waiting for visits. I'm going to travel. I'm going to try new things. I'm going to live." Ashley nodded slowly. I understand, and I want that for you. You deserve that. Thank you. We sat in silence for a moment. Can I visit you? Ashley asked. Here? Can Richard and I come out sometimes? Of course, anytime. And when the baby comes, I'll be there. But then I'm going back to whatever life I'm building. Because, Ashley, I love you more than anything. But I have to love myself too. She hugged me then, tight and long. I'm so sorry it took you leaving for me to wake up. Sometimes that's what it takes. She stayed for 2 days. We talked a lot, cried a lot, laughed a little. Richard flew out on New Year's Eve, and the 3 of us had dinner together. Mrs. Morrison, Richard said, I owe you an apology too. I should have seen what was happening. I should have protected you from my mother's behavior. You're seeing it now, I said. That's what matters. We're going to do better, he promised. And you know what? I believed him. Ashley and Richard flew back to Chicago on January the 2nd. I stayed in Phoenix. My house in Cedar Falls sold in 3 weeks. A young couple with 2 kids bought it for $175,000 cash. I made a profit of about $90,000. Added to my savings, I had over $130,000. For the first time in my life, I had money that was just mine. Not for emergencies, not for Ashley, not for someday. Mine. I bought a small condo in Scottsdale. 2 bedrooms, a balcony with a mountain view, close to hiking trails. It cost $150,000. I paid cash. The rest, I invested and kept for living expenses and travel. In February, I enrolled in a photography class. I'd always wanted to learn. In March, I joined a hiking group for women over 50. I made 3 new friends. In April, I took a trip to Santa Fe by myself. I spent a week exploring art galleries, eating good food, and not answering to anyone. In May, Ashley went into labor 3 weeks early. I was on the next flight to Chicago. Baby Emma was born at 2:47 a.m. on May 15th. 7 pounds, 3 ounces of absolute perfection. When they put her in my arms, I cried. Not because I was sad, but because I knew this was a new beginning. I stayed for a week, helping Ashley recover, cooking meals, doing laundry, holding Emma while Ashley slept. Patricia came by twice. The first time was awkward. She walked in like she owned the place, then stopped short when she saw me in the kitchen. Stella, I didn't know you were here. I'm here, I said simply. She looked uncomfortable. Well, I'm sure Ashley appreciates the help. She's my daughter. Of course I'm here. Patricia started to say something, then stopped. She stayed for exactly 15 minutes, then left. The second time she came 3 days later, Ashley was napping, and I was rocking Emma. Patricia knocked softly. Can I come in? It's Ashley's house, not mine. She sat down across from me. We sat in silence for a moment. You have her eyes, Patricia finally said, looking at Emma. Yes. Another silence. I owe you an apology, Patricia said quietly. I looked up, surprised. I was threatened by you, she continued. From the first moment I met you. You're Ashley's mother, and you have this bond with her that I can never have with Richard. And instead of respecting that, I tried to replace you. I didn't say anything. Richard's been distant since Christmas. He says I need to work on my boundaries. My therapist says I have control issues. She laughed bitterly. 63 years old, and I'm just figuring out that I push people away. It's never too late to change, I said softly. I'm not good at sharing, Patricia admitted. I've always wanted to be the most important person in Richard's life, and when he got married, I panicked. I thought I was losing him, so I tried to hold on tighter, and in doing so, I hurt you. I hurt Ashley. I almost lost Richard anyway. Patricia, I was never trying to compete with you. I know. That's what makes it worse. You were just being a mother, and I turned it into a competition you didn't even know you were in. Emma made a small sound in my arms. I looked down at her perfect little face. There's enough love to go around, I said. Emma's going to need all of us, but we have to figure out how to coexist. Can we try? I looked at Patricia, really looked at her. I saw a woman who was afraid of becoming irrelevant. A woman who had spent her whole life building walls instead of bridges. I knew that feeling now. We can try, I said. It wasn't a friendship. It probably never would be. But it was a truce. I flew back to Arizona after a week. Ashley cried when I left. "I wish you lived closer," she said. "I know, honey, but this is where I need to be right now. I understand, but we'll visit, okay? We'll come to you. I'd love that." And they did. In July, Ashley and Richard brought Emma to Arizona for a week. We took her hiking in a baby carrier. We showed her the desert sunset. We introduced her to Margaret and Tom. Patricia did not come on that trip. In August, I flew to Chicago for Emma's baptism. I stayed in a hotel, not at Ashley's house. I needed my own space. The baptism was at a small church. Emma wore a gown Patricia had picked out, but she wore a blanket I'd crocheted. After the ceremony, there was a lunch at Ashley and Richard's house. Both families were there. Patricia and I were polite to each other. We didn't hug, but we didn't fight either. At one point, Ashley pulled me aside. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for trying with Patricia. I'm doing this for you, and for Emma. Not for her. I know, but it still means a lot. I spent 4 days in Chicago, then flew home. Home to Arizona. My home. In September, I took a 2-week trip to Colorado with my hiking group. We camped under the stars, climbed mountains, told stories around campfires. I felt alive in a way I hadn't felt in decades. In October, Ashley called with news. "Mom, I'm coming to Arizona for Thanksgiving. Just me and Emma. Richard has to work." "What about Patricia? She invited us to her house. I told her we were coming to you." My heart swelled. "Really? Really? You're my mom. It's time I started acting like it." Thanksgiving in my little Scottsdale condo was perfect. Just me, Ashley, Margaret, Tom, and baby Emma. We made turkey and all the sides. We watched the parade on TV. We took Emma for a walk in the desert, her first time seeing saguaro cacti. That evening, after Emma was asleep, Ashley and I sat on my balcony, watching the sunset paint the mountains orange and pink. "I'm proud of you, Mom," Ashley said. "For what?" "For choosing yourself. For showing me that it's not selfish to have boundaries. For teaching me that love without respect isn't really love." I took her hand. "I'm proud of you, too, for learning that lesson. Some people never do. Patricia's trying, you know. She's in therapy. She's working on it. That's good. She asked if she could come visit you sometime. Just her. She wants to talk. I'm not ready for that yet. I told her you might not be. But maybe someday. Maybe." Christmas was different that year. Ashley, Richard, and Emma came to Arizona. We celebrated in my condo. A small tree, homemade cookies, simple gifts. Patricia stayed in Chicago. Ashley called her on Christmas morning, and they video chatted. Patricia looked lonely, but she didn't complain. "Merry Christmas, Stella," she said when Ashley turned the phone to me. "Merry Christmas, Patricia." It wasn't warm, but it wasn't cold either. That night, after Emma was asleep and Richard was watching a movie, Ashley and I sat on the balcony again. "Are you happy, Mom?" she asked. I thought about it. Was I happy? I'd lost my house, the place where I'd raised my daughter. I'd moved across the country, away from everything familiar. I'd blown up my life in the most dramatic way possible. But I had a home I loved, friends who valued me, a daughter who finally saw me, a granddaughter I adored, and most importantly, I had myself back. "Yes," I said, "I'm happy." "Good. You deserve it." Now, as I sit here telling you this story, it's been 2 years since that first terrible Christmas. 2 years since I got on a plane and left my old life behind. Emma is 18 months old now, and she calls me Nana. Ashley brings her to visit every few months, and I fly to Chicago twice a year. Patricia and I have reached an understanding. We're not friends, but we're not enemies. We share a granddaughter, and we've learned to navigate that with grace most of the time. Last month, Patricia actually called me. Not Ashley, me. "Stella, I'm planning Emma's second birthday party. I'd like your input." I almost dropped the phone. "My input?" "Yes, you're her grandmother too. What do you think she'd like?" We talked for 20 minutes about themes and cakes and guest lists. It was surreal, but it was also progress. I'm 64 now. I'm taking Italian lessons because I'm going to Rome next spring. I'm volunteering at a women's shelter, teaching self-defense classes. I'm dating a man I met in my photography class. Nothing serious, just coffee and hikes and good conversation. I'm living a life I never imagined. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it. If I regret leaving so dramatically, selling my house, starting over. And I always tell them the same thing. No, not for a second. Because here's what I learned. You can love someone with your whole heart and still need to save yourself. You can be a good mother and still have boundaries. You can sacrifice for your children and still matter. For too many years, I thought being a good mother meant disappearing. Meant always saying yes, always accommodating, always putting myself last. But that's not love. That's erasure. Real love respects both people. Real love doesn't ask you to vanish. And when I finally understood that, when I finally chose myself, I didn't lose my daughter. I found us both. If you're listening to this and you see yourself in my story, if you're the mother who's always invisible, the friend who's always accommodating, the person who's always last on their own list, I want you to hear this. You matter. Your needs matter. Your happiness matters. It's not selfish to take up space. It's not cruel to have boundaries. It's not wrong to choose yourself. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop letting people love you badly. Sometimes you have to leave so they can learn to miss you, so they can understand what they had, so they can grow. And sometimes, just sometimes they do. My relationship with Ashley is stronger now than it's ever been. Not because I stayed and endured, but because I left and taught her that I had value. We talk 3 times a week now. Real conversations, not rushed check-ins. She asks about my life, my adventures, my plans. I ask about hers. When she needs advice about Emma, she calls me, not Patricia, me. And when Emma is old enough, I'll tell her this story. I'll tell her about the Christmas her Nana got on a plane and changed everything. I'll tell her that women don't have to shrink, that mothers are people too, that love should make you bigger, not smaller. I'll tell her that her grandmother learned how to save herself, and that's the greatest gift I could give her. Because little Emma will grow up knowing that the women in her family are strong, that they have boundaries, that they choose themselves without guilt. And maybe, just maybe, she won't have to learn that lesson the hard way. That's my Christmas miracle. Not the one I planned, but the one I needed. I prepared everything for Christmas. My daughter left me alone to celebrate with her mother-in-law, so I got on a plane and taught them all what happens when you forget someone matters. I'm Stella Morrison. I'm 64 years old. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm a photographer, a hiker, a grandmother, a woman who finally learned to choose herself, and I've never been happier. If this story touched your heart, I'd love for you to share it with someone who needs to hear it. Share it with the mother who's feeling invisible. Share it with the woman who's always last. Share it with anyone who needs permission to choose themselves. And if you enjoyed this story, consider subscribing. I share stories like this about real women, real struggles, and real transformations. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And remember, you are not selfish for having needs. You are not difficult for having boundaries. You are not wrong for wanting to matter. You deserve to take up space in your own life. May you find the courage to do exactly that. God bless you.